Hello Internet, my name is Andrew Eder, and welcome to another episode of Film Editorials. Sort of. You've probably noticed that there's a different background, so we're not in my bedroom. You've also probably noticed that there's a man sitting here. This is Paul K. DiCostanzo, the managing editor for the Good News Review, TGNReview.com, and he's here to do two things.
Yes, Andrew, we do have two surprises. In addition to getting to know you better and being our first visual contributor to the site, which is going to be amazing, but our other surprise is an upcoming exclusive. The Good News Review has recently acquired a never-before-published interview that was conducted with the hairdressing giant, and a name that you are very familiar with because you may very well have his company's product in your bathroom. The late, great Paul Mitchell, who passed in 1989. It will be done in several parts, and it's fascinating because it covers the man, his work, and the era in history. It was done, as I said, in 1981 in New York City, and we will be releasing it in accordance with the International Beauty Show, which is going to be held this upcoming March at the Jacob Javits Center in New York City. And it is going to be a fascinating read, not simply because nobody knows about it, but the fact of the matter is he's a very insightful man. He is a giant in his business, and the name Mitchell is right there for those of you who are in hair or in beauty or fashion of any sort. That's right there with Sassoon. But ultimately, thank you for having me, the Good News Review audience. This is Andrew Eder. Let's get to know Andrew Eder. What was the point in time in which first you found out that you really loved movies? And then at what point in time did you decide that you wanted to make it your life?
I saw Star Wars. I remember distinctly finding the VHS for the first time, and my dad picked it up, and he was like, oh yeah, this is a pretty good movie. I don't remember the first time watching the movie, but I just remember instantly loving it. Shortly thereafter, after I had started to memorize the movies, we were sitting around the dinner table one day, and I forget how the conversation came up, but it was something along the lines of Andrew, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I was like, oh, I want to do Star Wars. And my mom was like, so you want to be a movie director? And I was like, what's that? She's like, oh, that's what George Lucas does. I was like, who's that?
At what age is this, roughly?
It's probably 6.5.
Oh, okay, so 6 months you become this avid fan.
Yeah.
And you're asking these questions.
And she's like, well, he's the guy who made Star Wars. And I was like, that's a job? I want to do that.
Oh, boy.
And since then, 20 years, I'm still in the same spot.
At what point did this go from being this great job that you want to be when you grow up to something you actually want to pursue?
Really, in college was when it kind of gelled for me. I was doing an independent study. I was making a short film with some friends of mine, and that was stressful in a whole lot of reasons, which I don't need to get into right now. But whenever I had the camera in my hands, it didn't matter. The stress just went away. I was holding the camera, everything was fine. And that was when I kind of realized that being a cinematographer was really what I wanted to do.
Why did you decide not simply to critique, but to teach at the same time?
I think that goes back to to college. I was a film studies minor at the College of William & Mary, and for that kind of a program, what you do basically is watch movies and then critique them. So that's I'm coming from that kind of a background. I still want to bring people entertaining reviews, because there's no point just being yeah, this is good. Hopefully I'm funny. I try. Thank you for laughing. That's a perfect place to put that. We don't need to be so serious all the time. Life is too short to be down about everything, which is why I think us working together is a good idea, because you try to find the happy news when you can, but not just kittens.
How does the creative process work for you?
I try to work from sort of a top-down model. For the reviews, this means starting with my general impression. What did I think of the movie overall? I'm thinking of that as I'm walking out the door of the auditorium, not even out in the parking lot yet. I'm trying to think, how did that movie make me feel? what did I believe about that movie? What kind of things did that change in me? What's my overall impression? And then from there, trying to think of reasons for that. So that's when I try to lock in on the pluses and the minuses. The minuses tend to come quickly because those are the stop signs that you see in the movie, things that take you out of it. But also the pluses can be very obvious too, like the action was awesome, the visuals were amazing, these kinds of things just pop out. And then try to work a little deeper to figure out why things work and don't work. So like a movie can be really professionally made and have really pretty images in it, or like really good effects, but if they don't drive anything to the story, then they don't really help. So they'll be like a soft plus. Like, oh yeah, it looked good, but none of it matters because the movie's pointless.
What do you think is the coolest thing you could possibly do that you consider even beyond the dream?
To direct a feature film. That is just, like, that would be really awesome. I've worked on a feature film set, and just the amount of work that the director had to do was scary and intimidating and impressive and awesome in both senses of the word. That would be really cool. That'd be really cool.
How do you interpret the quote, "No film is ever completed. It is simply abandoned"?
There's always work that could be done to something. It's to a project. It's just a matter of, do you have the ability to it? Do you have the money to do it? Do you have the time to do it? Usually the answer is no to all three of those questions. But that is something that comes up that I've felt with. I just recently competed in a 24-hour filmmaking competition. That was an instance where I needed more time. There's still some
That's
stuff.
a story in and of itself, isn't it?
Yeah. I want to at least add a sound effect to this one special effect that I have. It needs a sound effect.
Yes.
So in that sense, I have abandoned it for the time being. Hopefully, maybe I'll go back to it and do it like a director's cut kind of a thing. But for the time being, that's kind of abandoned. And then there's other movies where you just gotta keep moving and keep rushing through it. And so I don't know if every movie is abandoned, but there is a lot of stuff that could use more work in some capacity. And there's, are you 100% satisfied with it? No, there's probably little things that are bothering you about it. The movie I was talking about before that was really stressful to make with my friends, that was something I'd like to go back and revisit, just because things didn't work out the way really any of us wanted to, I'm sure. Some of them probably aren't going to want to go back to it, but I want to go back to it and rework some stuff there. There are plenty of times when you're sitting there, you're rewatching it for the 900th time. You're like, I cannot edit this anymore. There's nothing I can do to change this. I don't have the skill or what have you. Just time to move on. And that's what he's talking about. I'm sure that happened to him all the time because he was a perfectionist, as many filmmakers are. Just one of those things with, like, you got to be done with it. So you got to move on to the next thing.
What's a sweet spot?
Ideal situation for me is that people act upon my review. So if I say, totally go see this movie that you weren't going to normally go see, like, here's like a small independent movie you're on the fence about, and you go see it because I said so, that's amazing for me, that you would act on it. Or if I say this movie is terrible, and then I hear that they have stopped the sequel that they were thinking about making, that's awesome for me too. Otherwise, I hope that the conversation is generated about things that were good and were bad about it. Like, I tend to do reviews of movies that people are going to see anyway, like Star Wars and the Avengers and that kind of stuff. So people are going to go see it regardless of what I say. But then if we can talk about the quality, talk about the things that did work and didn't work about it, and ways that it could be improved in the future, and ways that if we had so many millions of dollars, we could remake it ourselves.
There's one thing you could tell a potential viewer to get them to check it out, give it a try, 10 minutes of their undivided attention. What would you want them to know to compel them to give it a moment of their time and some of their thought?
So what I do is I make movie reviews from my opinion. And yes, they are my opinion, so they will vary depending on how I feel about the topic and the subject matter and the intellectual property. But it comes from a place of loving movies and having watched a lot of movies. So if you care about movies and you care about good movies and the movie-going experience, that's what I would encourage you to watch for. Opinions that are opinions, but they're based on something that comes from a place of honesty and comes from a place of enjoyment of the medium.
Well, I can say, Andrew, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me, I guess, hosting your show. I always like to think that the greatest honor bestowed on someone is being a guest on their own show. But I can safely say, from the To the Good News Review audience and being part of the TGNR family, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
I know our audience will love it, and if they don't know it yet, they will very, very shortly.
I think my subscribers will also enjoy your guys' content being informative, actual, good news, not puff pieces, nor the scary stuff you see in the 24-hour news cycle.
Yes, absolutely. You can find us at tgnreview.com. Follow us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter. And if you are not yet a reader, it's time to do all of those things if you have not done so. I'm Paul K. DiCostanzo, the managing editor, and the very grateful guest host of Editorial. Thank you, and welcome aboard, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.